Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Tim's News Explosion on this Monday, the 9th of December 2024. We are live on the Wilms Front YouTube channel, the Wilms Front Odyssey channel, and on my Wilms Front X account. It is 9 p.m. here in Melbourne, Victoria, where the top story is and has been since Friday morning when it occurred. When I say top story, I mean all throughout the mainstream media, the arson firebombing of the Adass Israel synagogue. So that is in Ripon Lee, which is an inner south suburb in what I term Melbourne's Jew Belt. And Victoria Police held a press conference today where Shane Patton, the Chief Commissioner, said they're treating it as a likely terrorist attack. And they said they handed the investigation over to the Joint Counter-Terrorism Unit. So that's the Victorian and Australian Federal Police. So in case all the specifics of what occurred in this synagogue attack, because most of the media reporting and political commentary has just been swept up about this is the worst anti-Semitic attack in Australia's history. But what occurred on Friday morning around 4:10 a.m. is that there were two arsonists who used an accelerant to maximize the fire, and they spread it with a broom. What they were with the petrol, that's what they initially used, and then the accelerant. There were two people in the synagogue that morning. One wasn't there at the time. So according to the witness who was in there when he saw them, they were masked men. So he saw them, they ran away. He got his hand burnt. So there was one injury, but thankfully that was the worst that had occurred. And so there was huge damage done to the synagogue. And as I mentioned, the political fallout and the media commentary, that has what has been most dominant. Now, the Liberal Party, which is in the opposition at both the federal and Victorian level, so they have been, repeatedly said that they are 100% behind Israel and the Jewish community, and that more needs to be done to tackle the scourge of anti-Semitism since it was on the rise post the October 7 Hamas attack in southern Israel. Hello to Dawn Browning. Hello to Paleoconservative Australian. Can you believe how much they are whinging about this stupid synagogue? Well, I can. And when it happened to Tim Lutz's house, police didn't even bother to collect the evidence. Well, if Victoria Police had nipped this suburban terrorism in the bud when last Christmas they found no suspects in Tim Lutz when his family car was firebombed in his home in Werribee. And the Herald Sun, because News Corp, they are practically a synagogue themselves. You could call Sky News Skynagogue News. The Herald Sun said Tim Lutz runs to police after car attacked. So really disparaging. Well, we don't know who's behind this likely terrorist attack on the synagogue, but we do know that Melbourne for too long has been terrorized by left-wing Antifa socialist groups, and we've also seen not just in Melbourne and Sydney, aggressive Islamist rallies as well. But Victoria Police, because their modus operandi has been to basically, their idea of keeping the peace is to make sure that the Antifa socialists and Islamists aren't too antagonized. And so that's why they pick on a relatively small group, the National Socialist Network, and also because it makes it look like they're doing they're doing something to please the Jewish community, even though we definitely know that the National Socialist Network are not responsible for the arson firebombing of the synagogue. We certainly know that. This is from Notice and News. Tim Lutz told Notice and News on Sunday there was a glaring contrast between the days of sympathetic all-to-all media coverage devoted to the arson attack on the synagogue and the hostile articles written after he was targeted on Christmas Eve last year. So he said the two-tier response from the media, Premier, the police, and the Prime Minister between the firebombing of my home and the synagogue should prove to every white Australian that Jews have a disproportionate amount of control over our nation. Well, I would say that the Antifa Socialist Islamist alliance, they've made their gravest mistake in picking on, well, you would say not just Australia's, but the world's most powerful lobby group. I mean, they got away, whoever was responsible got away with firebombing Tim Lutz's car. We heard Shane Patton say it's only a matter of time, but he said he's making progress on, they said there's 3 suspects in this synagogue firebombing. Oh, just my lapel fall down there. Nobody told me. Can you all hear me properly? Sorry about that. Mr. Lutz on Saturday shared an image of Herald Sun article with the inflammatory headline, Neo-Nazi Tim Lutz runs to police after family car torch outside Werribee home. And he wrote, Jews run to police after synagogue torch. They wouldn't write that. And he also told Notice and News, as far as I'm aware, not a single politician commented on the attack on my family, and the police did not collect physical evidence, including unexploded Molotov cocktails on my lawn and in my driveway, and did not take any photos. And certainly, Avi Yemeni of Rebel News, he didn't go down there to interview Tim because although obviously Avi, being Jewish, has absolute contempt for Nazis and the National Socialist Network, the left-wing terrorists who did this to Tim Lutz's family car, how does he know that they're not going to target him and his family? I know he did some crowdfunding for some fancy security outside of his home, but I'm sure that this synagogue would have had CCTV, but Shane Patton said that he's not going to go into operational matters, so maybe they do have some idea. they are tracking some suspects and just don't want to give them give any information that might alert them. But Avi Yemeni was there on Friday morning outside the synagogue, and he attempted to question the Premier, Jacinta Allen, who turned up at around lunchtime, but she just ignored him, but did attempt to answer a question by another prominent Melbourne Jewish activist, Mechelem Weikheimer, who he in the 2000s took part. He took Victoria Police. He took Victoria Police. Well, it was nearly a decade of litigation after a off-duty Victoria Police officer was driving a bus from the Torquay Footy Club, and they religiously vilified Mechelem Weimer and his children, and he stopped the bus, and then they took his Yamaha, and so he is a relentless a Jewish Melbourne activist. So he said to ask Jacinta Allen, "Have you lost control?" And because he didn't like what she was saying, he kept interrupting and said, and she was going to start, and he kept interrupting her again. Well, you're not going to get a straight answer if you keep interrupting her. Now, Jacinta Allen, she said that the attack on the synagogue was another justification for the need to pass her government's enhanced anti-vilification laws, so that hate keeps falling down. It's not. Bear with me here for a moment. All right, it should stay there now. Jacinta Allen said that hate speech must be in the Crimes Act. So remember the maximum penalty, 5 years in prison for incitement or threat to hatred over not just race, religion, but sex, sexuality, gender identity, disability status. It's likely in the aftermath of this synagogue attack that will get bipartisan support. So John Prosciutto, the opposition leader, is saying that Parliament should be recalled before Christmas to well, not just pass this, but also because Jacinta Allen has also promised that protests will be banned under outside places of worship, and the New South Wales Premier Chris Minns has also pledged to introduce the same law. Now, Jacinta Allen says that this would be a constitutionally sound. They've got a precedent for it because of the 150-metre exclusion zones around abortion clinics, which ban pro-life activism, which was upheld in the High Court. Pro-life Catholic Club tried to challenge it. It was rejected. I mean, in my opinion, it is pretty low to protest outside a synagogue, church, any place of worship. And last week, there was a protest outside of Sydney's great synagogue by a group calling themselves the Stop the War of Palestine. So this was last Wednesday evening. Now, it wasn't a religious ceremony. It was an event to mark 100 years of the Israel Institute of Technology. So because it was a pro-Israel event, that's why they decided to protest. And there was a similar such protest, even though it was cancelled at the last minute, outside a Melbourne synagogue, though some activists still turned up. Because now they were the one in Sydney, the people inside the synagogue, they were in lockdown, holed up there for hours, and there was a couple who tried to go out and wave Jewish flags, and they were told to move, given a direction to move to go back in. And again, New South Wales Police, their modus operandi is the same as Victoria Police. Keeping the peace is to not antagonise the Islamist Antifa Socialist coalition. And this is why this this synagogue attack appears to be the circuit breaker, where, as I mentioned, the Jewish lobby, they're one of the most powerful in the world, and so they are going to demand action again, because these are three groups that have also gone after nationalist, freedom, and gender critical activists as well. Well, maybe not. The Islamists are on the gender critical sides, but and some of them are part of the freedom community. But you see where I'm going here with the overlap there. So they're finally antagonized the wrong group, and there was nowhere for them to hide after the attack on the synagogue, because to this date, all of the Antifa, socialist and Islamist groups, they've all enabled, justified, excused the escalating, aggressive pro-Palestine activism, saying, oh, you're worried about this when there's a genocide going on in Gaza, but they all had to condemn it because they just knew that there was no way that they could politically other than condemn it. Now, this attack on the synagogue, it occurred about just over 24 hours after Australia at the United Nations voted for 3 pro-Palestine resolutions in the General Assembly. And it was actually published on Friday morning in the Australian newspaper, a statement from the office of Benjamin Netanyahu. And I'll try to do his voice. Australia's flip-flopping is disappointing, awarding anti-Semitism and terrorism with a state in the heart of the Jewish ancient homeland and cradle of civilization with more terrorism, more anti-Semitic riots at campuses and city centres, including in Australia. It's a shame that the current Australian government wants to award these savages with a state. Thankfully, our key allies support Israel as we strive for peace and security. I wonder if he made a similar strongly worded statement against New Zealand, who also voted with Australia, and so did Canada and the UK. That's what Anthony Albanese said, that we voted with most of our Five Eyes partners. And then, as I mentioned, not long after he made that statement, then we had the synagogue attack, likely a terrorist attack. And this wasn't just a statement through his office. This was posted to his X account. The burning of the Adass Israel synagogue in Melbourne is an abhorrent act of anti-Semitism. I expect the state authorities to use their full weight to prevent such anti-Semitic acts in the future. Unfortunately, it is impossible to separate this reprehensible act from the extreme anti-Israel position of the Labor government in Australia, including the scandalous decision to support the UN resolution calling on Israel to bring an end to its unlawful presence in the occupied Palestinian territory as rapidly as possible and preventing a former Israeli minister from entering the country. Anti-Israel sentiment is anti-Semitism. No, it's not. Being critical of Israel, even anti-Zionism, is not anti-Semitism. Zionism is a political ideology, and even though most Jews are Zionist, it's still separate from Judaism as a religion. I know that there are many Jewish groups who want the anti-vilification laws to include criticism, or what they would term hate speech of Zionism, anti-Zionism, as the same as anti-Semitism. And I know that they tried to lobby Victoria Police, the various Jewish groups, to get Victoria Police to prosecute Hashtaya, the owner of the Burgatory restaurant, and as we found out recently, so Victoria Police said that the arson on his Caulfield store wasn't religious, motivated by his pro-Palestine activism, but the two arsonists confessed that they were paid, and also his home was firebombed. He's released a 4-minute video on his X account. And also, he retweeted this account that there was a car a pro-Palestine car that was attacked up in Sydney, I remember. So yes, the overall point that I would make about this, and I've make the similar point when there was that riot between the Sikhs and the Hindus in Melbourne CBD at the beginning of last year. We do not want people who, well, they're living in Australia. Most are citizens, you would probably assume, bringing their grievances and turning it into violence on our streets and suburbs. In fact, Mark Latham, the now independent New South Wales Upper House MP, he certainly, I think, had some good commentary in the aftermath. If I can just bring it up here impromptu. I can't find it, but he basically said if anyone who wants to carry on a geopolitical conflict halfway on the road to Australia should leave. Now, as I mentioned, the absolute the further political polarization that has occurred in the aftermath. Now, I would say that most Australians would be appalled by an attack on a place of worship, but I would still maintain that this is not going to be an election-defining issue, but this is almost all that Peter Dutton and the Liberal front bench have talked about the past few days. So Anthony Albanese, he's tried to preempt the Liberal and National coalition's criticism of him for not being strong enough on anti-Semitism. So on Sunday, he announced that he was giving another round of funding to the Executive Council of Australian Jewry for Jewish community sites security, including synagogues and schools. So they will get 32.5 million. So they got 25 million in October 2023 in the aftermath of October 7, and so the total that the Albanese government has allocated 50 million for securing faith-based places grants program. But according to Peter Dutton and his Shadow Home Affairs Minister, James Paterson, who is a hardcore Zionist, that money was not good enough because so it's been given to the Executive Council of Australian Jewry to organise the security, but this is not good enough because the strings attached to it, according to Peter Dutton and James Paterson, is they can't be armed. So, of course, most the ordinary Australian is not allowed to be armed for self-defense. So this was their press statement this morning: real action to address the anti-Semitism and extremism crisis. A Dutton coalition government will act from day one to fix Labor's law enforcement crisis through a number of policy measures. Create a new dedicated anti-Semitism task force led by the Australian Federal Police, ASIO, Australian Criminal Intelligence Commission, the Australian Transaction Reports and Analysis Centre and Australian Border Force. Issue a new ministerial direction to AFP to prioritise addressing anti-Semitism, including any outstanding complaints and unresolved crimes against the Jewish community. And this would be applied retrospectively. Direct the Anti-Semitism Task Force to refer any visa holders in acts of anti-Semitism for immediate cancellation and deportation. Amend Section 501 of the Character Provision Migration Act to ensure anti-Semitic conduct is captured by the law and applies retrospectively. Deliver the $32.5 million security funding package requested by the Executive Council of Australian Jewry without any strings attached, including funding armed guards in schools and synagogues, unlike the Albanese government restricted funding unarmed guards only. So that was Peter Dutton and his Shadow Home Affairs Minister, James Paterson, this morning. And Anthony Albanese later this afternoon announced that the Australian Federal Police would be forming an anti-Semitism special operation.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Firstly, I want to acknowledge the referral of the Adass Israel synagogue fire attack to the Victorian Joint Counter-Terrorism Team, which unlocks the powers and capabilities of the AFP, ASIO and Victoria Police. The AFP's remit is to protect Australians and Australia's way of life, and for many months the AFP has been discussing how we can better support our state and territory partners to investigate hate crimes or threats against vulnerable communities. Unfortunately, in Australia today, those of Jewish ethnicity or religion are being targeted because of who they are. The fire of Labor MP Josh Burns' office, the car set alight in the eastern suburbs of Sydney, the attack on the Melbourne synagogue. This is a crime. This needs to stop. And today, the AFP will expand its remit with the support of the Commonwealth Government. Special Operation Avalite will be an agile and experienced squad of counter-terrorism investigators who will focus on threats, violence and hatred towards the Australian Jewish community and parliamentarians. In essence, they will be a flying squad to deploy nationally to incidents. The Commonwealth offences Special Operation Avalite will investigate will include urging violence against members or groups, advocating terrorism, advocating genocide, using a carriage service to make a threat, and using a carriage service to menace or harass. I want to assure the Jewish community that the AFP will continue to provide capability and resources to state and territory police. However, from today, the AFP will take a greater role. The AFP will not tolerate crimes that undermine Australia's security or our way of life.
So this was the press release by the AFP. So it is primarily about threats, violence, hatred towards the Australian Jewish community and parliamentarians. So the 21 AFP police and analysts who are experienced in counter-terrorism will deploy nationally to investigate urging of violence against members of groups, advocating terrorism, advocating genocide, using a carriage service to make a threat, and using a carriage service to menace or harass. You saw the, for people watching, the Attorney General Mark Dreyfus behind the Federal Police Commissioner Reece Kershaw. Mark Dreyfus is, of course, Jewish, and so is the Federal Labor MP Josh Burns, whose seat of Macnamara takes in the synagogue which was attacked. Now, obviously, given that they're Jewish, for Jews, their Jewish identity is very important. So for the fact that Peter Dutton, he accused Josh Burns of not of having lost his voice before the weekend and not stood up to a weak prime minister, which that's pretty outrageous to make that accusation that Mark Dreyfus and Josh Burns are in fact are traitors to their community. I mean, Peter Dutton would be absolutely appalled if an Indigenous leader said that Jacinta Price wasn't properly investigating, it wasn't properly representing Indigenous Australians. But it's okay for Peter Dutton to say that. Now, obviously, as I've been saying, that this has been basically been treated by particularly the Liberal opposition and most of the mainstream media is sort of, this is Australia's October 7, even though thankfully no one died. But Anthony Albanese was criticised because he spent the weekend in Perth as part of his soft election campaign and was playing tennis on Saturday afternoon. It's called his Hawaii moment. He was in Perth. He wasn't halfway across the world and lying about his whereabouts. People were dying in those bushfires. Anthony Albanese wasn't on holiday and he's going to the synagogue tomorrow. Peter Dutton only went there today. So why didn't he go there right away? Now, as I mentioned, all attacks on places of worship are abhorrent, and so is this. But we had recently a arson attack on an Anglican church in St Leonard's, which is in Ballerine. So four teenagers were charged with arson and burglary, but the vicar called for grace rather than judgment. And you remember earlier this year, it seems to have been memory hold, Bishop Marmari Emmanuel of the Assyrian Church in southwestern Sydney, stabbed in the eye by that radicalized Muslim teen. Now that was called a terrorist incident right away because they captured the perpetrator. They're still at large, the perpetrators of this synagogue arson. But Bishop Marmari Emmanuel said that he forgave his attacker. But obviously here we are seeing the Jewish community, well, they certainly want vengeance and action. And also we have seen many Hindu temples that have been vandalized and attacked this year. Just the latest, there was 2 in Canberra. Now, I'm not saying that we should accept attacks on places of worship as the norm, but I'm saying that to basically say that this is a terrorist attack on the scale of, say, the Link Cafe siege, where 2 people died, were shot dead, and many were taken hostage for 24 hours, or the Christchurch massacre, where 51 Muslims were murdered. Yes, it will be incredibly upsetting to members of the Jewish community and all those who want them to feel welcome in Australia. But to call this one of Australia's most darkest days is certainly an exaggeration, and it's also because it's so polarized. in our national politics, the Israel-Palestine conflict, which most Australians are not going to vote on next year. And actually, this synagogue was severely damaged in an arson attack in 1995 as well, which was also abhorrent as well. So definitely, I think that, well, cooler heads should prevail. And of course, we have, Benjamin Netanyahu trying to basically strong arm the Australian government back into 100% supporting Israel. Some might call it foreign interference. I mean, you think that it's highly unlikely that the arsonists like Australia voted 3 times for Palestine resolutions at the UN. That means we can go and arson attack a synagogue. I don't think so. Now, we did get a flurry of polls. So this will probably be the final sets of polls released before Christmas and the new year. So there was the news poll last night in the Australian. So it was 50-50 two-party preferred for Labor versus LNP. And then in the Resolve political monitor in the Age and Sydney Morning Herald, 49 to Labor, 51% to LNP. Then the Redbridge poll in the News Corp tabloids, that's led by Cos Samaras, former Victorian Labor Assistant Secretary. So he released a more thorough seat-by-seat analysis and basically found that it's only the coalition that is capable of winning a majority at the next election. The best that Labor can get is a minority government, and also said that Peter Dutton is viewed as strong, while Anthony Albanese is viewed as weak. Certainly, Peter Dutton is feeling very confident. And obviously, well, we've seen that on display in him wanting to have all of these this large crackdown on anti-Semitism as part of his. I'm going to basically crush this problem in Australia. He's had the tough guy image his whole political career as Home Affairs Minister and then as Defence Minister. Of course, his reputation as Home Affairs Minister was keeping the borders secure and deporting foreign criminals, though, of course, that's not what he told the people of India when he travelled there at the end of last year. He bragged about all of the visas he granted to Indians, and obviously he was there when Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi toured Australia. When Anthony Albanese called in the boss, Peter Dutton was there smiling in the background. It's bipartisan, this pivot to Indian mass migration, because obviously, well, we've seen the problems with the migration from the Islamic world, and also from the People's Republic of China, because many of them can be manipulated by the CCP back home to be basically sleeper agents. And India's a democracy, and we play cricket, and how good's the food? And Peter Dutton, because he feels that he's in the ascendancy, he's welcoming of Indian migrants. He has he's walked back a promised cut in net migration from 160,000 per year. He's only promising to see the annual number of permanent visas fall from 185,000 to 140,000, which I mean, permanent visas are granted to people who are already in Australia. Anyway, this was basically his backtracking on Sky News interview with Andrew Colonel yesterday.
You previously talked about a reduction to net migration to just 160,000. Is that still what you want to achieve?
We've spoken about a 25% reduction because the government's bringing in a person every 44 seconds at the moment. 1.67 million people over 5 years.
No, but on net migration,
away from infrastructure.
That's permanent migration. What about net migration?
Our policy is on net migration at the moment. It's an interesting topic you raise because the government has a disaster that's been brewing for the last couple of years. They've got a migration program that's been taking advantage of people at the end of their visas refusing to go from our country. And as we demonstrated when we were in government, we will manage our migration program to our country's benefit. We're a great country in good part because of the migration over many, many years, but we're not going to tolerate a situation where young Australians can't find rental accommodation or have no chance of home ownership. And
but you're not sticking to the 160,000. You're not sticking to the 160,000 target for net migration then?
Andrew, what we've said is that we want our migration program to step down in the first 2 years. It will ramp up again in years 3 and 4, and we will bring down the numbers who come through the humanitarian and refugee program back to the long-run average of that. That's what will work for our country. Again, we'll have a look at the economic settings, as we said at the time of the policy announcement. We'll have a look at the economic settings when we come into government to determine exactly how much damage Labor has done.
Oops. Peter Dutton said the quiet part out loud there. He said, like, we're going to just cut. It's easy. The general public is going to be very confused about what the difference between net migration and permanent migration. So he said we're only going to have a slight cut in permanent migration, and then we're just going to ramp it up basically when it looks like we're being tough on migration. And you'll remember that in the final week of Parliament, the Liberal and National Party voted against Labor's proposed cap on international student numbers after meeting with migration lobbyists. So clearly the vested interests have got to them. And so Peter Dutton, he cannot be trusted to seriously stop the planes. That's basically how they're all coming now. Because, well, as I mentioned, he's eager to say, oh, migration is still good for Australia. We've historically been a migrant nation, and even though our multiculturalism is not working, both the Labor and Liberals say that our multiculturalism can still work, even though we've got Israel-Palestine the conflict playing out on our streets here. You see the complete contradiction here, that what they are trying to promise the Australian people, that we are going to stop mass migration, stop sectarianism, they can't. Multiculturalism, we're seeing in Australia, and we're seeing all around the world, leads to sectarianism, and they've got themselves in this. You see that we can't stop migration too much because we're a migrant nation, even though this is the most insane level of mass migration we've ever had. Now, it's not just the major parties who are trying to court the Indian vote. It is One Nation as well. So last month, Pauline Hanson visited a Sikh temple in Perth with one of their One Nation candidates for the Western Australian state election, Parminder Singh. With the West Australian state leader, Rod Caddies. So Pauline Hanson wore even though most Sikh women don't wear turbans, she decided to wear one. Peter Dutton decided to wear one when he was in India. The politicians, they love to play dress up. So this was all started by Justin Trudeau's India trip. And so Pauline Hanson, she's basically trying to appease those who have called her racist for the past 30 years. So how can I be racist when I'm visiting a Sikh temple and I'm being respectful in their place of worship? Of course, this did not work for One Nation at the New South Wales state election in March 2023, courting the Indian vote. Now, one of the new up-and-coming ex-commentators, What's News, interviewed Parminder Singh about why he came to Australia. Does he want more Indians to come to Australia? And I had this interaction with What's News over on X this afternoon. So I should just bring it up here so you can all see this interaction. So my summary was his reasoning of why he should be accepted into Australia. My homeland is divided. Obviously, the Punjab province of British India was divided between India and Pakistan. A lot of Sikhs were displaced. Also, he says he pays his own way, and Australia's decadent culture and lack of work ethic is why immigration from India is needed. He talked about all the businesses that he owns, and also that Australians aren't making babies. And What's News said he's spoken to dozens of Indians about this via TikTok, and he exactly sounds the same. And I've noticed not just Indian migrants, but lots of migrants that I've spoken to, they claim that you need us immigrants here to fill the jobs Aussies too lazy to do. So it's fed into the migrants coming here that the dull bludger stereotype of white Aussies, and this was self-inflicted. Remember Today Tonight and A Current Affair back in the day, the white Aussie dull bludgers. And so this is their reply when they're accused of taking jobs. It's like, well, you've got so many welfare bludgers here. You need us here. We work really hard. We work 100 hours a week. So it's kind of a self-sabotage in that regard there. Hello, Linda. So they're sucking another 10K out of my daughter, and a long-term partner actually works and pays taxes, but they changed the deal again for the actual useful immigrants. Where's her long-term partner from? Dawn says they suck 50K each when my mate's UK passport parents remigrated. They're still happier here and in the UK. We're happy to take refugees from the motherland, as I've said. Now, let's move on to some crime news. Now, I couldn't believe this story when I read it. So the parents of this 20-year-old criminal Aboriginal man, Tyrone Smith, who he'd only been released from prison for 26 days, and he attempted a home invasion in Boulder near Kalgoorlie with a balaclava and a machete, and he was killed by the homeowner. Well, he died 3 3 days later. And so his parents they have gone to the media saying that they are seeking answers and want a proper police investigation. At the end of the day, a person who dies because of a violent act is the victim. It doesn't matter whether they're black or white. Smith's mother, Kathleen O'Loughlin, said. We're hopeful police get to the bottom of what happened and how it came to pass. My son died in a house on a suburban street in Kalgoorlie. So basically, she's trying to imply it was a good boy who didn't do nothing, even though he had a substantial criminal record. Now, Aboriginals in Kalgoorlie have rioted when a police officer wasn't charged for when they were chasing an Aboriginal boy on a stolen bike and he crashed and died. Now, the Premier of Western Australia, Roger Cook, called for calm, but of course, you should have the right to defend yourself against a home invader, because home invaders have killed home owners. Remember, up in Queensland, Emma Lovell was murdered by a teenage home invader, only got 14 years in prison. And this is why the new Crisafulli Liberal National Party government have passed adult crime for adult time, because he only got 14 years. He'll be out. He should get life without parole for murder. So should the Sudanese teenager charged with the stabbing murder of Ipswich grandmother Vilene White. So the fact that this is, because if you're over 10 years old, you should know by then that murder is wrong. But the pseudo human rights activists, they say, oh, we're going to lock 10-year-olds up for life. They're not going to go to life in prison for stealing a Snickers bar from the local supermarket. It's if they don't know by 10 years old that murdering somebody is wrong, I mean, seriously. And they're also going to be allowing the media in to report on children's courts. Over in the United States, they're allowed to name minors who are arrested and charged with murder. I don't know why the rights of the child are more important than the rights of the victims, the dead, in the worst cases. Of course, in the US, of course, the media self-censors with a lot of minors charged unless their name is Kyle Rittenhouse. Now, we had last week the so-called Australian venue company say that they weren't going to celebrate Australia Day at their 200 pubs in Australia because it was Day of Sorrow. They're owned by a Chinese company, but then they backtracked and said, oh, we're sorry for the confusion that we called. So it's basically saying, oh, we're still open, you can still come in, but they didn't fully recant. Now, most Labor MPs, they've fallen into line and said they support Australia Day because it's political suicide to be anti-Australia Day going into an election year. But federal Labor MP for Fraser, Daniel Molino, said that Australia Day is in transition. I didn't know that historical days could be in transition. Obviously, we know about gender transitions. Linda Hunter says, did you see the disgusting blame merchants in New York calling for hero Daniel Penny to severely punish? Yes, it was a hung jury. So Fat Alvin Bragg, the District Attorney Manhattan, is trying to recharge him with a lesser charge, even though he should be protected by double jeopardy. Now, it seems that, the Commonwealth Bank, they wanted to take the heat off the Australian venue company as Australia's most hated company. They sent letters to 9 million customers who have complete access accounts, and they're going to be moving them in 2025 to smart access accounts, which there's going to be a $3 fee for assisted withdrawals, which is by a teller at a bank branch or over the phone. Obviously, ATMs will be free, but maybe if it'd been 50 cents, they sort of could like maybe get away with it. $3 for getting your own money out from a teller. That basically seems like robbery. Like, yeah, the banks are the robbers now, not the actual bank robbers. Although fractional reserve banking, they do make are able to rob a lot from the people as well. But I digress. I won't get into Austrian economics. So it's Group Executive Retail Banking Services Manager Angus Sullivan had this waffle statement, and so he's said that the changes are taking place such that approximately 90% of our customers we intend to move who we expect will be better off or the same will be moved to a lower monthly account fee. But they've decided to put a 6-month pause on the transfer, and they will have exemptions for pensioners and concession card holders from the $3 assisted fee there. So they're sort of delaying it, but they're still going to be implementing it. But certainly we'll keep watching. Who can boycott, take their money out of the Commonwealth Bank? We can. Remember, that's their slogan, which can do the Commonwealth Bank. Now, some good news is that the strike at 5 Woolworths distribution centres ended on Saturday, with the United Workers Union reaching an agreement with Woolworths, so they'll get the pay rise, and also workers won't be disciplined if they don't have 100% pick rates with the AI algorithm. Now, certainly, there were workers who wanted to go back last week while the strike was occurring, but the picketing workers, though there were some outside agitators from the Victorian Socialists, such as that absolutely disgusting looking human Jordan Vandenberg, lead candidate from the Victorian Socialists, turning up hoping to speed up his late stage capitalism fantasy. So trying to get some mileage out of that. So Woolworths went to the federal court last Friday. They ruled that the union had to lift the picket line, but there was still I don't know if they were part of the union or the outside agitators who were still blocking it on Saturday, but then that all packed up because the agreement had been reached. So obviously stock won't return to Woolworths store immediately. But obviously there'll be a race to get the shelves back up for Christmas. But its main competitor, Woolworths, Coles, they are certainly not out of the woods with their drugged beef. Bouvert, I think that's how you pronounce it. It's sort of French, Bovaire. That's how you pronounce it. It's French. So yes, Coles boasted that 3 of their beef suppliers were feeding their cattle this anti-farting drug, Bouvert, to cut methane emissions from 50%. because yes, cow farts are contributing to global warming. Now, just coincidentally, we have the CSIRO, the Commonwealth Scientific Organization. They are calling for volunteers to track their flatulence. So they want to just study our farts and see what makes us fart. What are they next going to develop a drug to stop humans farting as well, cut down on our emissions. I'm more of a burper than a farter, though I do make sure that I mute my microphone whenever I have to fart or burp on air. If you do hear some sort of flatulence type sound, then it's just the squeaky chair here. So that's not a fart. Or maybe if I drag I remember that Eric Swalwell, the Democrat congressman, he was accused of farting, but apparently it was a mug that was scraping across the desk. Does this sound like a fart? No, that doesn't sound. Maybe if I can't make the sound, so that sounds like bullshit. I smell something bad with that. Now, the CSIRO, you may remember I brought you the story how they're growing the bird flu, H5N1, the highly pathogenic avian influenza, in its Geelong lab. Now, we don't need to worry about a lab leak because it's basically military biosecurity there. But not at the virus lab up in Queensland. So this was announced by the new Health Minister of Queensland, Tim Nicholls, today, and the outgoing Chief Health Officer of Queensland, Dr. John Gerard. So there has been a serious breach of missing vials of live Hendra virus, Hunter virus, and fragments of Lassa virus, but they're not believed to contain the live virus itself. 323 samples are missing in total, but the risk to the public is minimal. Wuhan, oops. Yeah, so oops. So apparently this is a historical breach, so we don't need to worry. I remember we had going back to supply shortages. Remember there was bird flu, a bird flu outbreak in Victoria and New South Wales earlier this year, where they had to cull millions of chickens, and now it's happening in New Zealand. 140,000 chickens have had to be culled because of bird flu, but it's not the H5N1, the highly pathogenic avian influenza. Now, just to finish the Australian news, this Thursday, 10:15 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time, it is Judgment Day in Deeming versus Prosciutto in the federal court. She got the notification today. Justice O'Callaghan would deliver his judgment at 10:15 a.m. on Thursday, 12th of December 2024 in Melbourne. The judgment delivery will live stream via the court YouTube channel. So remember, just to refresh quickly, Maura Deeming sued Victorian Liberal leader John Prosciutto for defamation for claiming that he accused her of being a Nazi sympathiser after Thomas Sewell and the National Socialist Network turned up to Kelly J. Keen's Let Women Speak event in March 2023, which Maura Deeming attended. So she was expelled on the second attempt from the Victorian Liberal Parliamentary Party room, but there was no discipline of Liberal MPs Brad Batten and Anne-Marie Hermans when they held a public rally against the renaming of Berwick Springs Lake to the founder of Sikhism. Because Joel Davis, Tim Lutz, Nathan Bull, Thomas Sewell, Jimon Roberts, and Will Karsdorf, they all showed up. And in fact, the Jacinta Allen, in fact, released a statement saying that John Pesciuto has known that neo-Nazis attended a Liberal organised event for days and said nothing. Why? Why does the Liberal Party continue to put on events that attract Nazis? So apparently, the Liberal Party, they're going to be hiring private security when they host public events. And Joel Davis said that he is going to press charges if, to use his words, hide thugs, keep activists out of public events. They probably couldn't force them from a public event, but maybe they're just eyes and ears to say, quick, there's neo-Nazis here, make sure you run away right away. Maybe they're just there to organize the getaway car, just in case there's some neo-Nazis. Look, there's one of them there. Quick, get away in the car. Maybe that's what the security is there for. Basically, there's some form of secret service, like so instead of dealing with assassination attempts, they're dealing with people turning up who are members of the National Socialist Network. So apparently they have the same, they need the same security as those who as US presidential candidates need. This is the now. Another person who has been cancelled and smeared because Thomas Sewell, Joel Davis, and Blair Cottrell turned up to an event he spoke at is actor Damien Richardson. So way back in September, he spoke at the second National Workers Alliance meeting, and he was accused of performing a Nazi salute by raising his hand and saying, if I raise it here, am I going to be arrested? So he's basically doing a demonstration. I wonder if this new anti-Semitism, a special operation, will charge him, even though I don't think that the arsonists were inspired by Damien Richardson raising his arm. Well, Damien Richardson is not backing down. So he is going to be speaking at the third National Workers Alliance event. We will not be silent. Stop demographic replacement. Stop mass migration. Stop media lies and manipulation. So Damien will be speaking again along with National Workers Alliance founder Matt Trehe. So Friday, December 13th at the Polish Club in Rowville. Doors open at 6:30 p.m. The far left are trying to get it cancelled, ringing up the Polish club. They are not going to cancel. They're probably saying, how can you, as Poles, make allow Nazis into your territory like what happened in World War II? They're probably saying something like that. Now, to international news, and none of us, I think, saw this coming, that after a 13-year civil war in Syria, the regime of Bashar al-Assad crumbled within 7 days. So they'd just taken, as I was going to air last week, just taken over Aleppo, and then Damascus fell on Sunday. So really came out of nowhere. And the geopolitical commentators are saying, well, because its allies, Russia, has all its manpower in the war in Ukraine, and its other backer, Iran, is busy with its proxies, Hamas in Gaza and Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. So he's without the backing without the backing of his two allies that have kept him in power for over the last decade. And so it's so it's the end of the Assad dynasty, which he succeeded his father, who died in 2000, who became president in 1970 in a Ba'athist revolution. So Ba'athism is a Arab socialism. So Saddam Hussein was a Ba'athist. They're called secular dictators because it is Arab socialism. It is, well, Arabs are a race, so it's a form of racialized socialism. Now, obviously, Bashar al-Assad, he was a tyrant, but as many are pointing out now, he did protect Christian minorities in Syria, and when ISIS took over vast amounts of eastern Syria in 2014, Christians were murdered, displaced. Some of them were accepted as refugees in the West, but there was a lot who came over to Europe who were Muslim. Now, obviously, he did persecute the Islamists who are a threat to his regime. These rebels who have taken over, they are Islamists. Its rebel leader, Muhammad al-Jawlani, used to be the most wanted man in Syria by the US embassy there. $10 million reward. Does that reward still stand? He was in Al-Qaeda at the time that this post was made, though he founded his own group. And so I've seen US Christian commentators Candace Owens, Charlie Kirk express grave fear about what will happen to the Christians in Syria. There are a lot of Syrian Muslims in the West who are celebrating, and a few have been asked by bloggers on the streets, does that mean you're going to go back now, since it's safe for you to go back now, that you don't need protection anymore, you can go back to your homeland? And of course, most of them are not going to, because it's better living standards than the West. And Assad's mansion has been, presidential palace has been ransacked, and he had a lot of designer luxuries, including a massive car fleet. So he has fled to Russia. Granted asylum there. Now, all of the Western leaders have expressed that they are glad that the Assad regime has fallen. It has been a dream of theirs, even though that the Islamist regime, there's not great hopes for them. And when we saw how the Arab Spring ended in Egypt with the overthrow, with the resignation of Mubarak, the overthrow of Muammar Gaddafi in Libya, and of course that was all exacerbated this Arab Spring instability by the Obama administration, Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State. And also Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu is also pleased of the fall of the Assad regime. And Benjamin Netanyahu, he posted in English a message to his social media, because obviously Syria, being an ally of Iran, which was backing Hamas and Hezbollah, Israel has long been a hostile to the Ba'athists, the Arab socialists, including Saddam Hussein, and that's why they were pleased with the invasion of Iraq in 2003. So this is Benjamin Netanyahu's plans for Israel now that the Assad regime has fallen.
This is a historic day for the Middle East. The collapse of the Assad regime, the tyranny in Damascus, offers great opportunity, but also is fraught with significant dangers. This collapse is a direct result of our forceful action against Hezbollah and Iran, Assad's main supporters. It set off a chain reaction of all those who want to free themselves from this tyranny and its oppression. But it also means we have to take action against possible threats. One of them is the collapse of the Separation of Forces Agreement from 1974 between Israel and Syria. This agreement held for 50 years. Last night it collapsed. The Syrian army abandoned its positions. We gave the Israeli army the order to take over these positions to ensure that no hostile force embeds itself right next to the border of Israel. This is a temporary defensive position until a suitable arrangement is found. Equally, we send a hand of peace to all those beyond our border in Syria, to the Druze, to the Kurds, to the Christians, and to the Muslims who want to live in peace with Israel. We're going to follow events very carefully. If we can establish neighborly relations and a peaceful relations with the new forces emerging in Syria, that's our desire. But if we do not, we'll do whatever it takes to defend the state of Israel.
So Netanyahu is basically claiming credit for the revolution, and said that we've moved into Syria because even he's saying that we're glad Assad's gone, even though we had an agreement that there was going to be this buffer zone. So we've moved into Syria to secure it ourselves. He basically contradicted himself there. Now, could there be another? Because, well, the Islamists, they are not a fan. Well, they want to also liberate other Muslims and have them under Islamist regimes. And I saw, I'm not sure if it was translated correctly, some of the rebels chanting that they want to liberate the people of Gaza. Now, with Bashar al-Assad in Russia, maybe Tucker Carlson will have to make a third trip to go and interview Assad, because Tucker Carlson returned to Russia recently, and last week premiered in full on his YouTube channel his English language interview with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. He previously interviewed Vladimir Putin for 2 hours, which was translated, and the first half hour was talking about the historical relationship between Russia and Ukraine. Now, Sergei Lavrov, he went into in detail about what are the issues that led to Russia invading Ukraine, and talking about basically the banning of Russian language and religion in parts of Ukraine. And I recommend you all go and view it yourself, because obviously he's probably misrepresented a lot. I'm not saying that Sergei Lavrov is a great statesman, but what he talks about, he goes through all of the issues. It just shows that Western geopolitical analysts just have no idea about what this conflict is actually about. So, and this is why Donald Trump and his supporters want to end Western involvement in this territorial dispute. And Putin and Lavrov have said that they want to end it as well. And Donald Trump posted to Truth Social after the fall of Assad. Assad is gone. He fled his country. His protector, Russia, led by Vladimir Putin, was not interested in protecting him any longer. There is no reason for Russia to be there in the first place. They lost all interest in Syria because of Ukraine, where close to 600,000 Russian soldiers lay wounded or dead in a war that should never have started and could go on forever. Russia and Iran are in a weakened state right now, One, because of Ukraine and a bad economy. The other, because Israel and its fighting success. Likewise, Zelensky in Ukraine would like to make a deal and stop the madness. They ridiculously lost 400,000 soldiers and many more civilians. There should be immediate ceasefire and negotiations should begin. Too many lives have been needlessly wasted, too many families destroyed. If it keeps going, it can turn into something much, much bigger and far worse. I know Vladimir well. This is his time to act. China can help. The world is waiting. So that was an incredibly, I would say, succinct in that everything that Trump said was absolutely making the right setting to end the war in Ukraine, which is more of a threat than the Israel Middle East war, because Russia-Ukraine can turn into a nuclear war. And the Europeans, obviously they and the Biden administration have popped up. Zelensky touted him as the modern day Churchill. Netflix have got a 4-part Churchill docu-series about how he was the adamant, he was the determined and adamant a defeater of Nazi Germany. It has Boris Johnson and George W. Bush talking about Churchill. I know that Iron Duke did a live stream on Friday mentioning, challenging anyone to debate him that Churchill was the most destructive force in the British Empire. Now, also, the world is just going crazy in this in Biden's lame duck period before Trump takes office. So there was the South Korean president Yoon Suk Yeol declaring martial law for 6 hours on December 3. Basically because he had a hostile National Assembly that wasn't passing his agenda, so declared martial law because he said the threat of North Korean communists. Now, it ended after he tried to ban the National Assembly from meeting as part of his martial law decree, but they burst into the building and annulled it, and so it ended, and now because it looks like he'll be impeached, he said sorry, and the latest, he's been banned from traveling from South Korea while he is being investigated and will likely be impeached. Romania, the first round of its presidential election has been annulled by its highest court because of allegations of Russian interference. So the first round was won by nationalist candidate Călin Georgescu. Now, Romania is a member of the European Union and NATO. Is this a foreign interference by the European Union and NATO? Because there's no allegations of electoral fraud. It is that there was propaganda we didn't like. If only that the US deep state had thought of this to annul the US 2016 presidential election. Dawn Browning says, Churchill was a plonker. Horace has dissected many recollections about his weakness. Now, Donald Trump, I was in France for the official unveiling of the restoration of Notre Dame Cathedral, which that wasn't a terrorist attack. That was just an unfortunate fire. So Joe Biden didn't go, sent First Lady Jill Biden. There's this hilarious AI of them fighting there. Also, Trump met the Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. Elon Musk was there as well. Donald Trump, he sat down for an in-depth interview on NBC's Meet the Press with Kirsten Welker. He is, obviously, Trump his art of the deal strategy is why he immediately announced that he was going to slap tariffs on Mexico and Canada, and he told Welker that Mexico and Canada should become the 51st and 52nd states if the US is going to keep subsidizing them. And it was the threat of the tariffs that got Justin Trudeau to Mar-a-Lago for Thanksgiving, and also the Mexican president, Claudia Sheinbaum, said that she had a constructive talk with Donald Trump about making sure that the border is closed. Now, he also told in that interview, he also said that he wouldn't use the Justice Department to go after his political enemies. We knew that he wouldn't do that, just like he didn't go after Hillary after he won the 2016 presidential election. He is going to pardon the January 6th prisoners on day one, because basically Joe Biden pardoning Hunter basically gave him a pass. And I also hope that Joe Biden pardons Anthony Fauci, because it would be proof that Anthony Fauci has done crimes, and also it would allow Trump to make even more politically based pardons as well. Now, in the Supreme Court of the United States, they're hearing oral arguments in the case United States versus Skirtmeti. So the Biden administration has joined a suit brought by 3 transgender teens and their families, arguing Tennessee's Senate bill, SB 1, which prohibits all medical treatment, intends to allow a minor to identify with or live as a purported identity inconsistent with the minor's sex, or to treat with permanent discomfort or distress from a discordance between the minor's sex and asserted identity, violates the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment of the US Constitution. Also, the other you would say event that came out of nowhere was the assassination of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson in New York City, with the bullet casings stating delay, deny, and oppose. So they're saying that it could be a disgruntled employee or somebody who was denied coverage. Obviously, Taylor Lorenz, that absolutely disgusting blogger, saying that we are glad that he's dead, but I'm not inciting people. We're just not mourning that he's dead, given that he's overseen people have died. And this is why probably they're not getting a lot of tips from the public, because not many people are going to the NYPD say that they have his backpack, his DNA, his face. He left on a bus out of state, so they believe that they're close to getting him, but they would have trouble, I think, getting tips. Obviously, the main thing that's wrong with the US healthcare system is the fact that it's so complicated, and the fact that health insurance is tied to employment. Another health insurance company, Blue Cross Blue Shield, announced that they weren't going to cover anaesthetism in surgeries after 90 minutes. And Kathy Hochul, the New York governor, said, "Right, we're going to make sure you reverse this." And I saw that some of the LARPers online saying, "Oh, like, does she want to be next?" Obviously, this could inspire this assassination. Could inspire copycat assassination of CEOs of not just healthcare companies, but CEOs of companies who are deemed to do wrong. Does that mean that the corporatism that the far left supported, they supported woke capitalism, does that mean it's over? Now, over to the UK briefly. Now, last week, Prime Minister Keir Starmer, he decided as part of his reset to say that the mass immigration to the UK was by design, not by accident. And he blamed Brexit, saying that Brexit had caused this mass migration. No, it's the fact that the UK's borders are not secure. All the illegal migrants coming over the English Channel. And this week, there was a car crash interview on Sky News Sunday by Keir Starmer's deputy, Angela Rayner, being interviewed by Trevor Phillips about, because they have a housing crisis as well, exacerbated by mass migration. Look how basically Angela Rayner, she says we have a housing crisis, but don't worry about the migrants because we've got plenty of housing. See for yourself.
All right, let me ask you about another element of this. On the present densities, you're going to add 3.4 million, or homes for 3.4 million people with your 1.5 million houses. On your own figures, we're also going to add to our population 2.5 million people over this same period. Are you content that more than 5 out of 7 new homes will go to immigrants?
Well, that's not the truth, and that's not the case.
That's what will happen.
Well, that's not the reality, because with
where the
2.5
million immigrants that are in Rachel Reeves' budget figures going to turn up? Where are they going to live?
Well, there's plenty of housing in the UK, but the houses, especially
hang on. You can't, on the one hand, say we've got to build this 1.5 million houses, and then say there's plenty of housing already.
There is plenty of housing, Trevor, already, but there's not enough for the people that desperately need it. So the homes, especially under our affordable homes programme, which is social and affordable housing, they will be there for people who desperately need them, local people. We've already outlined how we're going to support veterans and people who are fleeing domestic violence.
Okay.
Councils need homes for people that are on the waiting list. I've already announced changes to the right to buy, making sure they have
this doesn't quite make sense.
so that we can deliver the houses they desperately need.
Deputy Prime Minister, it doesn't quite make sense. You start the interview by telling me that there's a housing crisis. When I remind you that you have said yourselves as a government, we're going to need 2.5 million migrants. Some of them, by the way, people are going to build the houses. Suddenly, there's a lot of housing. Where are these people going to go?
Well, she is not very smart, Angela Rayner. Well, she doesn't need to be smart if she wants to be Prime Minister. She just needs to make sure that she strikes the knife into Keir Starmer's back at the right time to get the Prime Ministership. Maybe taking lessons from fellow Ginger Julia Gillard about how to backstab your Prime Minister as the deputy to become Prime Minister. Now, of course, this is the big crisis that the UK is facing: mass migration, displacement of its native population, Indigenous population, I should say, the erosion of the freedom of Indigenous Brits. But of course, the media of the UK like to distract the public with celebrity villains. The latest is the UK MasterChef host, Greg Wallace. Well, he's actually a judge, I think. I don't watch MasterChef, which is on the BBC. So he's been accused of making sexually charged food remarks to women over the years, and he said of his accusers last week that they're middle-class women of a certain age who basically can't take a joke. And I've seen that Katie Hopkins and Joey Barton defend him, saying, you know, a bit of banter, like everyone's snowflakes these days. And of course, the BBC, he's the perfect villain to distract from from their cover-ups over the years of paedophiles. The latest, of course, Hugh Edwards, their star BBC News presenter, convicted paedophile now, having child abuse images on his phone. So they before they hung Greg Wallace out to dry, saying, "Look, we're taking seriously sexual inappropriateness of the BBC." It was Jermaine Jonas, a ex-footballer, BBC pundit, because he'd sent a naughty text to a female at the BBC. So, yeah, the BBC, they'll continue. It seems that they'll continue. They'll continue to cover up for paedophiles, particularly white paedophiles. But if you make an off-color joke or text towards a woman, then out you go. Now, speaking of football, the villains of the Premier League have been the captains who have one refused to wear the rainbow captain's armband for the Premier League rainbow laces campaign for Stonewall. So Ipswich Town captain Sam Morsey, he didn't wear the rainbow armband because he's Muslim, although he didn't face any sanction for that. But the captain of Crystal Palace, Mark Guhi, did get reprimanded by the FA because he wore the rainbow armband but wrote on it, "I love Jesus," and they also, when he wore it, because there was two games in 1 week in the Premier League, Jesus loves you. Obviously, in Christianity, the only man it's okay for another man to love is Jesus. So we've seen other sports organizations who have ditched their rainbow, the pride events, because players, because of their belief systems, don't want to take part. Manchester United, because one of their Islamic players, Nosra Mazraoui, didn't want to wear a pride jacket. None of them did. The A-League has a pride round because there is a gay player in the A-League, Josh Cavallo, even though he hasn't played a game for ages because he's constantly injured. There was only one. There was an A-League player who said that he couldn't endorse it because he was Muslim, but he got sent to re-education and had to apologise to his teammate Josh Cavallo. And to finish it off in the UK, the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, is going to be knighted, Sir Sadiq Khan. So yeah, because you're just getting knighted for doing your job in the UK. And now I finish off with some good news from my former Trad Tasman Talk co-host, Dewey De Boer, and reality check radio host, Dewey De Boer. He, after almost 5 years, won his action against New Zealand police for raiding his home because he is a firearms owner and wanted to protect his rights, because Jacinta Ardern wanted to go after New Zealanders' guns after the Christchurch massacre. So Dewey De Boer posted, "Victory, Jan 20, arms police raided my family has been declared unlawful. Nearly 5 years of fighting New Zealand police in court." So it was ruled that I find the warrant process miscarried for failure to include a full copy of Mr. De Boer's post, in particular that part of it providing a link to the select committee's process. Given the emphasis placed on Mr. de Boer's participation in right-wing group by the police, the failure to refer to this link meant the judicial officer was left with an unfair impression of Mr. de Boer. One might support an inference that he would unlawfully retain possession of a rifle shown in the post, but the reference to the links support an altogether more cogent inference, namely that Mr. de Boer was seeking engagement in the democratic process. Given this, the application was flawed, and I consider that a judge properly appraised of the facts would likely decline the application, there being no information that Mr. de Boer provided any sort of illegal possession of a firearm or request further information that might support an inference that he might present such risk. In the result, the appeal is allowed. I make a declaration to the effect that the warrant was invalid and the subsequent search breached Mr. Boer's right to be free from unreasonable search. I invite submissions on costs. My present view is that Mr. de Boer should have his reasonable costs in the district court. So I congratulate Dewey de Boer on his persistence, because they raided his home when his wife and 3 children were there. Would have been extremely distressing. When I visited Dewey de Boer in 2017, had dinner at his family home, he showed me his firearm collection. I wonder if he'll do that too. His daughter's potential new boyfriend when he comes around for a date one night. Hey, do you want to see where all my guns are? Of course, I'm joking, of course. Now, the Melbourne Underground Film Festival, the 24th, MUF 2024, opening night was last night. I attended along with Margot Huss. So it's organised by a Report from Tiger Mountain host, Richard Wollstonecroft. And also he's a regular panelist on Sam Newman's You Cannot Be Serious podcast. You can keep abreast of the schedule because it runs until Thursday, the 12th of December on its Facebook page. I'll put the link into the live chat. So it was at the Black Sheep in Hawthorne. Well, it still is there. So they have like a meeting place out the back. So I met the proprietor, Luke, who offered the venue to Richard after he did a shout out on Sam Newman's podcast. So opening night was last night. So I've got this is the program, and also got, because they had the Unshackled was a sponsor this year, as was a club coaster. So you got with your ticket $20 for an adult, 15 concession. You got a free coaster as well, which I'm going to use in the Unshackled studio. There's also a Muff beer that is on tap at the Black Sheep. So I saw last night The Kiss of Death by Irish filmmaker Terry McMahon, which so he's an Irish filmmaker, but it was set in Nigeria. It's about a southern Nigerian teacher, which is Christian. He performs CPR when he's teaching in the north on this Muslim girl, and he's accused of defiling her, putting because they don't know what CPR is, and takes a hijab off. So it's basically about how they didn't understand the Muslim dad, that he was saving his daughter's life. And then Vincent by Alan King is an Australian movie about this self-destructive writer called Vincent, who loses an eye and his tongue fighting this beast. But there was a glitch in the last 10 minutes. I didn't find out who the beast was before I had to leave, because there was bus replacement, so I had to, so there's still plenty in the program. The closing night is Thursday, the 12th of December, with Matt Walsh's documentary "What Is a Woman," and then there's the Muff Awards, and of course then on Friday there will be as I mentioned before, there is the National Workers Alliance third event. We will not be silenced at the Polish Club. Doors open 6:30 p.m. Polish Club in Rowville. Now, I continuing to do my weekly reality check radio Wilms Report segment on Paul Brennan's breakfast program every Tuesday morning. Obviously, as I've covered tonight, there's still a lot occurring in Australia. So Paul Brennan's breakfast program, you can see my archive with him. I'll put the link into the chat. And as always, at the end of the show, I cannot do all of the Unshackled productions sponsor and cover events such as Muff. There's going to be a brief vlog that's going to be published very soon without your support. So please support the Unshackled at either taking out a premium membership at the unshackled.net/membership. So bronze, $5 per month, $50 per year. Silver, $10 per month, $100 per year. Gold, $25 per month, $250 per year. Platinum, $50 per month, $500 per year. And you can also subscribe over at Substack. So the unshackled.net is used for articles. Margot just published a film review of Wicked the musical. Substack is used for our Unshackled Productions archive and sending out email alerts. So monthly $5 per month, annual $50 per year, or founding member $500 per year. So thank you so much, everybody, for your viewership as well. That's certainly what makes it all worthwhile as well. And there will be a fresh Wilmsfront episode this Sunday at 9 p.m. Melbourne time on the Wilmsfront channels. I'll be speaking with Solon Millen, who was one of the first Victorians to be arrested and charged with incitement for attempting to organise an anti-lockdown protest in September 2020. So that'll be this Sunday. Make sure that wherever you're watching Tim's News Explosion or other Unshackled productions, you subscribe, click the bell to alert notifications, give a comment, thumbs up, like, share, because it all helps with the algorithm. So thank you so much once again for your company. Stay safe, stay sane, stay optimistic. And I will see you for the midweek wrap with Andrew Wilson on the new dedicated midweek wrap channel. So make sure you subscribe to that. And of course, I will send out an email alert and link to the channel on all my social media. I put the link into the live chat as well. That is at 8:30 p.m. on the midweek wrap YouTube channel. And also I'll be with Ben Shan, the Dusty Bogan, on most likely Thirsty Thursday, though I haven't decided whether I'll go to Muff closing night or do Thirsty Thursday. I could do both. I could do it at Muff. I haven't decided yet, but thank you so much for watching. I will see you next on Wednesday. Good night, everybody.
Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.